Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel. We hope you enjoy today's story.
Although many can forgive offenses, no one ever forgave contempt. Benjamin Franklin. In Austin, Texas, there was a beautiful winter day. The air temperature was -6 degrees Celsius, with a light westerly breeze. The evening looked even more spectacular. A full moon, a temperature around -12 degrees Celsius at 8 p.m. All of this matched the perfect forecast. To top it all off, Florida Georgia Line was in concert at the Moody Center, and Henry Canna had 2 front-row tickets for him and his wife Melanie. The 33-year-old couple, having been married for almost 5 years, was supposed to celebrate Valentine's Day a week earlier. The only problem was that in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, it wasn't very warm. In fact, it was about -11 degrees Celsius cold. There was 30 centimeters of snow on the ground and, according to forecasts, another 20 centimeters before it would melt. What does this have to do with Henry, Melanie, and their date with Tyler Hubbard, Brian Kelly, and the rest of the team? Good question. Henry was called at the last minute to fly to Sioux Falls the day before to fix a major computer malfunction at the Sanford Biomedical Center. When the problem arose, their neonatal department was participating in a nationwide research project. Henry was the lead IT specialist in his company and rarely went on business trips. However, since Sanford was their third largest client, Henry took the first available flight from Austin on Thursday. It took him about 6 hours to resolve everything. He had a return flight booked to Austin at 6 a.m., which would get him home 10 hours before the concert. The only problem was that by 3 in the morning, 30 centimeters of snow had already fallen on the ground, and it was still coming down. Notifications about delays appeared on the airline's app on his mobile, and finally, the flight was canceled. Henry stayed up all night looking for options. Henry received good compensation for his work, and he was worth every penny, but his boss would not be pleased if he booked a ticket home. However, he had just saved his company several $1,000s more than a charter would have cost, so he tried that option. By 5 in the morning, it was clear that no one would be flying anytime soon. The snowfall continued all day, and the temperature dropped to about -9 degrees Celsius. Some called it the storm of the decade. All Henry could think was, damn. Around 9 a.m., he dialed Melanie's office direct number. Her assistant, Kim, answered after the second ring and connected him. "Hi, babe, I'm so worried about tonight. What time are you planning to come home?" "Mel, have you seen the weather in Sioux Falls?" "No, Henry. I knew you were headed there but wasn't paying attention. What's happening?" "Unfortunately, a damn pile of snow. So far, 30 centimeters, and possibly another 20 today before it stops. All flights are canceled." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I was so excited about tonight. I know I've been working a lot lately, and this was the perfect chance to start a romantic weekend together." "Damn, sometimes I hate your job." "I'm upset too, Mel, but you know, I only travel 4 or 5 times a year, and only when absolutely necessary." It was a serious crisis with a major client. "As you said, we've rarely been together these past few months, but it's you who've been working the late hours, not me. Besides, my job allows us to lead a damn good Texas lifestyle." "You're right, Henry. It's just that lately we're apart more often than together. I know a lot of it is on me. I'm working hard to make partner, which means I have to dedicate time to it. You've reached the level where you can mostly set your own schedule and keep it within reason. I'm getting there, but it'll be another year or so before I can start controlling my work time. I miss you and us." "I miss you too, babe. Why don't you invite your friend Sue and go have some fun? Front row tickets, and trying to sell them would be too much hassle. I can order a car to pick you up and take you home. Don't let my mess ruin the enjoyment of a great show." Melanie hesitated and suggested simply selling the tickets. She would just stay home and watch the concert stream online. She could easily sell the tickets through their account. She kept saying and saying that she didn't want to go if he wasn't with her. Henry resisted, urging her to go and have fun. He reminded her about her new pair of Tecovas boots, and how sexy those boots looked on her. After a few minutes of argument, she conceded. They both said, "I love you," and hung up. 5 minutes later, Melanie found her burner phone in the back compartment of her large bag and pressed the speed dial button. This was her part of the conversation. "Hi, how's your day going?" "Well, maybe I have something that could cheer you up. Henry just called, and he's stuck in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yes, he had to rush there on business, and then a heavy blizzard started. Can you believe his luck? Good luck to you. Anyway, I still have 2 tickets for tonight, but hubby will be chilling in the Great White North. Is Diana still staying with her parents in Memphis? Great. How about we spend the evening together? I've got a new denim skirt and boots I've been wanting to try on. I'll call a cab to your place, and we'll head out from there. How does that sound? Yes, I'll order a dark cab to make sure we have tinted windows. Giggling. Yes, let's party all night after the concert. See you around 7. Can't wait. Melanie worked diligently and skipped lunch to manage leaving the firm by 4:30 p.m. She wanted to luxuriate in a bath and rest for a while before heading to the concert. Before leaving the office, she called her best friend, Susan O'Connor. They met in her first year at the firm and immediately clicked. With just a year's difference in age and getting married within 2 weeks of each other in the same year, they had a lot in common. Hi, Susie. Honey, do me a favor. How's it going, Mel? I'll be happy to help if I can. If Henry ever asks you about how our evening at the Florida-Georgia Line concert went tonight, your answer will be, amazing. Why the hell, Mel? Are you still messing around with David the jerk? Mel giggled. Yes. I just can't get him out of my head. I know his colleagues' partners call him that because he can be a jerk, but let me tell you, there's another funny reason for the nickname, jerk. Sue was not amused. Mel, Henry is an amazing person, and you guys together are an amazing couple. This is the time when you start thinking about kids and building a family together. You're not in college anymore, sister. Why are you spreading your legs for this jerk? You're risking everything for some guy. Mel sighed. Her friend was faithful, but at the same time, she was a bit more conservative in her views on marital fidelity. I know, Sue. Henry is a great guy, and I'm not planning to lose him. David is wild and fun. We're both happy in our marriages, but really, between us, there's just this sexual spark that shakes our worlds. Mel, you really need to think before you speak. If you were happy in your marriage, you wouldn't be messing around with your boss in romantic escapades. And he wouldn't be sleeping with one of his employees if he was satisfied. Which part of your marriage vows did you not understand? Forsaking all others is pretty straightforward. Mel started to tire of her friend's lectures. Sue, are you going to cover for me or not, if Henry ever asks? I won't provide any information and will never bring up the topic, but if he asks me directly, I'll say I was with you. Where are we sitting? Front row, right in the middle. Thanks, Susie, you're the best. Next weekend, we're spending the day at the spa salon. It's on me. So Henry bought great tickets. Now you're using his gift to cheat on him with David, Sue thought. Out loud, she said, okay, bye. Mel rushed home and began preparing for the date. She drank a couple of glasses of her favorite Pinot Grigio, shaved her legs in a bubble bath, and then got dressed. She wore a snow-white lace bra, allowing her to unbutton a few top buttons of her white blouse. Her skirt was about 15 centimeters above the knee, showcasing her slender legs. The boots were dark gray and matched her vest. They were a Christmas gift from Henry. It was the first time she had worn them, but she was so excited that she didn't catch the irony of the situation. She looked in the mirror and was pleased with what she saw, looking back at her. She thought she would turn a few heads tonight, but she was only interested in one. After ordering a taxi, she drank another glass of wine. When it arrived, she mentioned making a stop on the way to the concert. The driver was happy to oblige. More money in his pocket was fine by him. The car pulled up to a gated cottage community. Melanie gave him the entry code. They drove 2 blocks and stopped at the curb. As if on cue, David Miller, Melanie's boss, dashed out of his house and jumped into the back seat, greeting his companion with an enthusiastic and passionate kiss. Oh my God, Mel, you smell wonderful and look stunning. I think we should skip the concert and head straight to your place. Melanie responded to his kiss, parting her lips and purring into it. Calm down, big boy. We'll have plenty of time for that later. It's going to be a great show. The taxi driver kept silent but noticed the wedding ring and diamond on her left hand as she kissed and caressed her lover. Trash and a bastard, he muttered under his breath. For her part, Mel never intended to cheat on her husband. They met on a blind date set up by her best friend. There was an immediate mutual attraction. She was outgoing, friendly, and had an easy way with people. Henry was a bit more reserved, but there was an inner strength about him that attracted her. He never overshadowed her, but she always felt safe in his presence. He was kind but firm, warm-hearted, and wise beyond his years. He went to college on a scholarship and after graduating, served 5 years in the Marine Corps. This experience, combined with his personality, made him someone others could always rely on. Mel found this trait as sexy as his 190-centimeter height and rugged good looks. Henry was skeptical of Mel's infatuations from the start. He never considered himself a catch or anything special. The Corps taught him that his duty was to look after those around him. "You led from the front and retreat last," was drilled into him at the base. This principle made an impression on him that stayed even after returning to civilian life. So, being pursued by a beautiful woman slightly embarrassed him. The only time he felt out of his element was when Mel suddenly grabbed him and kissed him passionately or looked at him across a crowded room with a gaze that could only mean, "I need you to figure out how to fuck me right now." As they grew together, Henry's fears subsided and Mel's confidence in them grew. They married after an 18-month courtship, which included a 4-month engagement. With his knowledge in communications and natural abilities, Henry landed an excellent job at his current firm in Austin. By his 3rd year at the company, he led his own department. In the 5th year, he became the vice president of IT development and client support. Mel graduated from law school 9 months after they got married and secured a solid entry-level position at a mid-sized firm in Austin, specializing in oil and mineral rights law. She was very astute and caught the attention of 3 partners at the firm, Connor, Sims, and Miller. And that's when the troubles began. David Miller was a 43-year-old married man with 2 teenage children. His wife, Diana, was the principal of one of the local high schools. Mel liked her, and she always thought they matched well as a married couple. Much about her boss was a mystery to her. However, it was clear that David Miller was a tough nut to crack, worth working for. He worked at least 55 hours a week as a senior partner, while 2 of his colleagues barely worked 40. He expected his team to work around 70 hours a week. Mel was in her 3rd year at the firm and had finally moved up to a 65-hour workweek. Miller seemed pleased with her work and gave her more substantial assignments. They began spending more time together. More time during the day and after hours. More time with the team and just the 2 of them. Soon, the loneliness became much more significant than team interaction. They began to communicate more intimately and even touched each other at times. They were playing with fire. Both understood it. It took 6 months before the spark turned into a real flame. They won a major court case that brought in a profit of about $2 million. David's share was supposed to be around $400,000, and Mel was to receive a bonus of $45,000. A 6-person team gathered in David's office to celebrate the event in the evening. The guy was in such a good mood that he even opened a bottle of his collectible bourbon for the occasion. An hour later, the party was winding down. David asked Mel to step aside for a minute. This caused a couple of smirks among the more observant guests. David saw the last visitor out and quietly locked the door. He turned around to find Mel, leaning against his desk, already unbuttoning her blouse. David paced the room like a man possessed. He wrapped her in his arms and engaged in a passionate kiss. David was not as big or strong as Henry, but he was more decisive. He was one of those guys who knew what they wanted and went for it. He had wanted Mel ever since they began working closely together about 2 years ago. His lust had been building up for a long time, and now it was finding its release. David moved in and out of Mel for the next few minutes. Holding her tightly by the hips, he took her from behind as she lay bent forward, sprawled across his desk. "You're amazing, Mel," David finally said, pulling away from her, allowing her to turn around, and embracing her. "I love that hot, dirty talk, but I think you're just incredible, and I hope this isn't all there is." "No, David, I don't think this is just a one-time thing. I feel a connection with you that I don't want to fight against. We're both married and want to keep it that way, but I hope we can have moments like tonight very often. I'm glad to hear all that from you, Mel. Yes, we both want to preserve our marriages, but I also want us to have more moments like this. Let me show you how much I want it," Mel responded, kneeling down. That was 6 months ago, and now Mel and David were entering the concert venue hand in hand. They concealed their affair well but made efforts to meet at least twice a month. Tonight, if they were worried about being seen, they didn't show it. They weren't overly affectionate, but even an outsider could tell it was a date between two people drawn to each other. Back in Sioux Falls, a dejected Henry decided to watch the concert live. If I can't be with her, maybe I can see her when they show the crowd, he thought to himself. After the opening acts, the band FGL burst onto the stage, performing 4 fast and loud songs. Until the 5th song, which finally slowed down, the cameramen didn't work the crowd much. When the camera began to capture couples in the audience, the love song, Cruise, started to play. Henry nearly ran to the bathroom when the song started, but he remembered it was Mel's favorite song and stayed. 30 seconds later, his world crumbled and his marriage disintegrated. The camera stopped on a couple in the front row, right where Henry had bought tickets. A man and a woman were embracing, dancing slowly, and kissing passionately, clearly oblivious to being on the big screen. He unmistakably recognized Mel in her new boots, which Henry had given her last Christmas. And though he didn't know him very well, there was no doubt that David Miller was the one embracing and passionately kissing his wife. Henry collapsed to the floor, completely speechless. The pain of betrayal hit him like a punch to the gut. He was stunned, his head spun, and he struggled to breathe. The camera moved to 3 other couples but then returned to Mel and David. This time, Mel broke off the kiss, looked up, and saw themselves on the screen. The panic on her face was impossible to hide. She buried her face in David's chest, pulling his head down to hers so he wouldn't look up. For 15 minutes, Henry sat on the floor, tears streaming down his face. He alternated between muttering something like, "Why, Mel," and angrily exclaiming, "Damn you, Mel, and you're going to get it, David Miller." As his composure began to return, he realized he needed to move and act quickly. In the Corps, he was taught that if you sit still and do nothing, you die. If you move and engage the enemy, you have a chance. He started to move. Henry called his good friend and attorney, Michael Lipscomb. Michael was a bit surprised by the call at 9:30 p.m. on a Friday night, but even more surprised by the topic. He apologized to Henry and asked him to confirm a couple of times, clarifying if Henry was sure it was Mel. Having made sure, he told Henry to hang up but answer the call that was supposed to come within the next 5 minutes. 3 minutes later, the phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but it was an Austin area code, 512. "Hello, this is Henry Canna." "Good evening, Mr. Canna. This is Erica Hamilton, an attorney and a good friend of Michael's." "Hello, Mrs. Hamilton. Thank you for calling me." "Call me Erica, and I'll call you Henry," Erica replied. Henry was about to say something, but she continued, "Forgive me for being blunt with you, Henry, but time is of the essence. Your wife is at a concert with another man, and you witnessed their intimacy live, correct?" "Yes." "Good. Where were they sitting and what were they wearing, as far as you can tell?" Henry responded as quickly and succinctly as possible. "When we hang up, send me the most recent and best photo of your wife that you have. While we're speaking, I have a private investigator heading to the concert. He will be there in 10 minutes and, if necessary, will spend the entire evening and the rest of the weekend with them. We need to gather as much evidence as quickly as possible." "All right, thank you. Henry, can you think of a pretext to stay in Sioux Falls for a couple more days? I would like our evidence to be irrefutable, and just one evening at the concert won't prove that. If you can stay because of the snow or work a bit more for your client, we'll have a better chance of catching him with his pants down. Please forgive my frankness." "Yes, I can arrange that," Henry replied. "Good, Henry, send me the photo as soon as possible and wait for my call. I'll call you no later than noon tomorrow with an update. Call your wife in the morning at a time convenient for you and tell her you're staying at least until Monday evening. I assume your employer won't mind?" "Yes, I'm the senior vice president, so I have a flexible schedule. I could work with the client on Monday." "Great. Sorry, but I have to run. We'll talk tomorrow." Henry was grateful for the conversation and quick actions. His head was still spinning, and he had no idea what the final outcome would be, but it was clear that this woman was good. That night he hardly slept and, by the way, never listened to FGL again. By 5:30 a.m., Henry had stopped trying to fall asleep. He got up and looked out onto the street. The snowfall had weakened, but it was still falling. He turned on the local radio station. In the last 36 hours, a total of 55 centimeters of snow had fallen. This was a real record for Sioux Falls. Obviously, nothing special would happen by the end of the day or even the next. Henry began making notes. 1. Infidelity was a common affair for her. Whether it was the first time or the 100th, it didn't matter. He wouldn't tolerate a breach of trust between close relatives. 2. As if infidelity wasn't terrible enough, the contempt they both showed towards him was the worst of all. They danced a slow dance and kissed in a very public place in his town. Even if only 1 or 2 acquaintances saw them, rumors would spread. Have you heard that Melanie Kahn is cheating on her husband with her boss? He wouldn't put up with this crap for anything. 3. He analyzed his actions as her husband over the past 5 years. He had always been faithful to her, but it's not like women were breaking down his door. He rarely looked at another woman. He was head over heels in love with Mel, and that meant he was absolutely faithful to her. Occasionally they argued, but he was a good husband to her. Caring, friendly, protective, but always respecting her as an equal partner. No, he didn't deserve such contemptuous treatment. 4. He made a detailed list of assets and liabilities. 5. He made a very short list of people he needed to call, including his boss, father, and 2 friends from the Corps. 6. He made a list of next steps in anticipation of talking to Erica. It was only 7 a.m., so he put on his sports pants, headed to the hotel gym, and worked out diligently until 9. After showering and having breakfast, he picked up his phone. There were 2 messages from Mel, asking how he was doing and telling him how much she missed him. She mentioned that the concert went fine, and Sue joined her. Another display of disrespect. He decided to check on something. Maybe he should wait for his lawyer to verify this, but he was, after all, a Marine. Inaction in times of crisis didn't seem like a good option to him. The phone rang twice before it was answered. "Hey, Henry," Sue said. "I heard you're stuck in Sioux Falls. I saw the weather map. It looks awful." "Hi, Sue. Yeah, it's white outside. It hasn't snowed this much in Texas for 100 years, let alone in a day. I'll be glad to get back home. How can I help, Henry?" Sue's voice sounded nervous. "Listen, Sue, I'm just curious. How did you like yesterday's concert? I enjoyed the opening song. This is how we roll. I watched it live from my hotel room. Yeah, Henry, it was a great show. I know Mel had fun, but I really missed you. Thanks for saying that, Sue. Can I ask you one more quick question before I let you go?" "Of course. I know you're a big fan of FGL, so I'm wondering, how the hell could you mistake This Is How We Roll for Up Down, the song they opened with last night? How is that possible, Sue?" There was silence on the other end of the line, and Henry continued. "Sue, I know you're Mel's friend, but I also considered you a friend, like Jim, her husband. But now, it seems you've taken someone's side and are ready to throw away our friendship so she can sleep with her boss. I'm not sure what I or Jim have done to deserve such disrespect, but your betrayal hurts me deeply." A lump formed in Sue's throat, and tears welled up in her eyes. It dawned on her that she had acted wrongly by covering for Mel. No true friend would ever ask someone they care about to help them be dishonest and hurt others. "I'm so sorry, Henry," she replied almost in a whisper. "How long has this been going on, Sue? How long has David Miller been sleeping with my wife?" "About 6 months, Henry." Henry was prepared for something like this, but hearing it for the first time, he was taken aback. It took him considerable effort to maintain his composure. "Sue, does Jim know you're lying for Mel and helping her break her wedding vows to cheat on me?" Sue gasped. "Oh no, Henry. Jim doesn't know anything about it. He would be devastated and utterly ashamed if he found out about my role." "Okay, Sue, for now, I won't tell Jim about the role you played. Soon, everything will come out, and I'm sure you'll have questions you'll need to answer. Jim is a good man, so my advice to you, come clean when the time comes. And until then, if I find out you so much as breathe a word of this conversation to Mel, I'll call Jim myself and damn well make sure he understands explicitly the role you played in helping Mel accuse me of disrespect and destroying our marriage." Now Sue was crying. "No, Henry, I won't say anything to Mel. I won't even respond to messages or phone calls over the weekend. I'll find a way to avoid talking to her. I'm so sorry, and I'm ashamed, Henry." Henry hung up without saying goodbye. On the other end of the line, Sue began to realize the depth of her foolishness in the name of friendship. She knew she would have to talk to Jim as soon as possible. Perhaps it would be best to do it right now. Then Henry called Mel. Her voice was sleepy, but she played the role of a loving wife perfectly. She pouted a little when she learned he wouldn't be home until Monday evening at the earliest. They had fun with Sue, but it was different without him. She didn't have much planned for the day. To run a few errands, tidy up around the house. Nothing special. She promised to make something special when her hubby returned home. She ended the conversation with a polite, "I love you." Henry replied, "Goodbye." She thought it was odd, but then David started caressing her breasts and tweaking her nipples so much that it drove her crazy, so she didn't think about it anymore. At 11:58 a.m., Henry's phone rang. It was Erica. She briefly informed him of the latest news and then said she would call back around 7 in the evening with a detailed report. She called exactly at 7 p.m. in general. It all boiled down to the following. 1. The shooting was very, very good. The private detective came to the concert and took several more shots. For a while, Mel was scared of the cameras, but by the end of the concert, they were hugging and kissing again. 2. They returned to Henry and Mel's house. The private detective anticipated this and placed recording equipment in several rooms. They spent the night engaging in passionate sex in the master bedroom. 3. Later, in the kitchen, they had a casual but candid conversation about what their relationship had been like from the beginning. They openly mentioned a few sexual escapades within the walls of the law firm. They also discussed how to keep it a secret. 4. They went out for lunch, then returned to the Can's bedroom for the rest of the day and evening. More sex. 5. The private detective will continue observation and recording, but Erica speculated that everything would be more or less the same. Then she wanted to know what was on Henry's mind. He had been thinking and taking notes all day. He shared his thoughts with his lawyer. She publicly disdained me and privately for 6 months. Our marriage is over, he began. She needs to feel the humiliation she brought upon me in the eyes of her friends and family. The truth about her actions needs to come out. There's no need to exaggerate. The facts speak for themselves, but no nonsense about irreconcilable differences. I want her served at work as soon as possible. I want his wife to know when I'm serving Mel, and maybe she can coordinate to serve her husband at the same time. The same goes for David. I want his wife to have everything we have on him. I hope and pray that in the divorce, she comes out on top. I also hope that his partners have more moral backbone than he does and they force him out of the practice. Maybe if we threaten to sue the firm for repeatedly engaging in office sex, we could motivate them in that direction. I don't want to stay in this house. I need to sell it. There are too many memories. Honestly, I don't even know if I'll stay in Texas. However, I also don't want her to live there. I hope when we sell, we can split the shares 50-50. I also want to protect all my assets. I don't mind spending my money on paying off cars or other minor debts, but I am absolutely sure I don't want to pay her alimony. She just received a large bonus, and the amount was already in the 6-figure range. Erica asked a few clarifying questions. She told Henry that given his ability to earn well, she would likely receive some form of alimony. However, if the law firm had a clause about moral principles, they could clearly argue that her infidelity destroyed the marriage. That could help. Henry will stay in Sioux Falls or return to Austin, lying low until noon on Tuesday. Mel will be served midday. Erica will try to locate Mrs. Miller before then and see if she wants to join the fun. Henry noticed that Mel hadn't called him on Saturday or early Sunday evening. They must have been having a wonderful time with that jerk. He knew he had to call her, or she might get suspicious. He called around 9. "Hey, I was just thinking about you and realized we haven't talked since yesterday. I hope you're still coming home tomorrow. I can't wait to see you. I missed you so much. Sorry, Mel, but it'll be on Tuesday. I have business at O'Hare Airport, so I'll be back home around 3 in the afternoon, and then we can plan a dinner together." "Okay," she replied disappointedly. "But next time I see James, Henry's boss and CEO, I'll tell him no more winter trips. He ruined an absolutely wonderful weekend that we were supposed to enjoy together. You'll tell him whenever you want, when you see him again," said Henry, almost chuckling at the thought. To himself, he thought, "What a damn, heartless, and evil bitch you've become, Mel." They talked for another minute or two, and before hanging up, Mel said, "Henry, I love you so much. You know that, right? You know how much I love you." "Yes, Mel," Henry replied, holding back tears. "I know exactly how much you love me," and with those words, he hung up. He just couldn't bring himself to humiliate her, even if it meant letting her know what was happening to her, and he knew what was happening to her. "She'll never humiliate me again," he thought. dialing his boss James's number to keep him informed. On Tuesday, exactly at 3 in the afternoon, Henry sat at the kitchen table. He wasn't sure when Mel would return home. He learned from Erica that everything was proceeding as planned. She was supposed to be served somewhere between 2 and 4. Obviously, Mrs. Miller had already forgiven that jerk for his 2 previous affairs with women like Mel. She wasn't in the mood to forgive a third, and happily hired Erica to represent her interests. Both Henry Cann and Diana Miller were named as plaintiffs in a civil lawsuit against Connor, Sims, and Miller. Erica reminded them both that she didn't think it would lead to anything, but there were rumors that, although Connor and Sims may not have been choir boys, they were not the type to tolerate immorality that harmed their business. Perhaps a member could have been shown the door. At 3:15, Erica called Henry to inform him that it was done. While they briefly discussed the next steps, Henry's phone was blowing up with messages and calls from Mel. In order, the messages read, "What the hell? How dare you humiliate me at my workplace? Answer, you jerk. Damn, you better be home when I get there. I'll never forgive you for this." Henry had only been in combat twice. His role in the communications service was to provide combat support. But every Marine is trained to be a rifleman, and twice in Iraq he had been in a firefight. Neither lasted long, and his captain, who never praised anyone, took the young lieutenant aside and told him he had done well for a rookie. Henry's combat experience helped him maintain calm and resolve before the fight that was about to erupt in his kitchen. Henry, where the hell are you disappearing to?" Mel shouted, emerging from the side door of the driveway. Henry sat silently at the table. Mel came around the corner with a folder in her hands and angrily threw it on the table. "You bastard! Did you serve me divorce papers at work? How could you do this? How could you be so cruel? Do you realize how humiliating that was?" Her tone softened slightly. "Why, Henry, why are you filing for divorce? We love each other, we have a great marriage and a wonderful future. What are you thinking? Talk to me." Henry remained calm. He realized it was the first time he'd seen Mel since he made the horrifying discovery last Friday night. Her eyes seemed sunken and swollen. She was jittery. He noticed she had opened the divorce statement, but apparently hadn't reviewed the documents. "Sit down, Mel, and we'll discuss this." "Don't tell me to sit down, you bastard. Who do you think you are? Are you sleeping with some girl on the side? I swear, I'll cut off your balls if you are." She loomed over him. "All right, enough," Henry thought to himself. He stood up and loomed over her. Looking down at her with a calm but stern expression, he spoke again in a voice that demanded attention. "Sit down, Mel, right now." She sat down. "Mel, did you at least look at the file attached to the divorce petition?" She shook her head from side to side, but didn't reach for the file. "Well, let's see what led to my world crashing around me last Friday night. First, here's your picture with that asshole David at the concert. No, it's not Sue, as you lied to me, it's your boss. It's the loving embraces and passionate kisses you both enjoyed." Mel recoiled from the table as if the picture were a venomous snake ready to strike. "David, this isn't—" "Shish. Quiet, Mel, it's my turn to speak. You'll have your chance. Next item. This flash drive. I'm not going to plug it in and play it. You can do that on your laptop later. But it's a recording of you and that asshole having sex in our bed last Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. It also includes conversations held right here at this table in our house between you and that asshole, discussing past sexual escapades and how to keep us and Mrs. Diana Miller in the dark about the future. By the way, I know your office isn't exactly next door to that asshole's office, so maybe you didn't notice that Mrs. Miller also filed divorce papers against him today. I don't know how he's going to explain to his teenage kids that he's been caught for the third time having sex with a coworker, but that's not my problem. You did know you were number 3, right?" Melanie flinched at this revelation. Apparently, she considered herself special, the only one he had ever been with outside of marriage. It seemed this asshole was also an excellent liar, but then again, he was a lawyer. What did she expect? Anyway, there are more pages detailing your affairs, as much as Sue could remember. Obviously, she realized that covering your ass could cost her marriage with Jim, so she turned to evidence of the accusation from a legal standpoint. In other words, she exposed you and spilled everything. All those nights she lied and said you were with her. Even the weekend with the girls in November last year was a cover for you and that asshole sneaking off to South Padre. By the way, I wouldn't call Sue anytime soon. Jim made it clear that their marriage is over if she talks to you without him. Finally, you have a copy of the civil suit that Diana Miller and I are filing against your law firm. Having sex with the asshole in our marital bed doesn't violate any company rules. However, his desk, couch, and personal bathroom, all in the law office, are fair game, so that's where we can bring the case. Our lawyer believes we have a good chance of success in this matter. So, my dear cheating wife, this is why I'm divorcing you. You've broken my heart in a way I don't think I'll ever be able to put into words. I was so upset last week when I had to fly to Sioux Falls because I was looking forward to spending time with the only woman I ever loved. The only woman I ever wanted to love. My wife, the person I hoped would be the mother of our children. Then, as I sat and watched the concert live, hoping to catch a glimpse of my girl singing and dancing with her faithful friend Sue, I nearly died seeing her in the arms of another man, desiring him passionately, accepting his kisses and caresses. My soul was destroyed in an instant. I think I'm man enough to accept that I've been treated unfairly, Mel, even disgustingly. People aren't perfect. I'm not perfect either. Forgiveness should always be part of marriage. But you didn't hurt me. You despised me. You deliberately humiliated me in front of everyone. That I cannot forgive and will not tolerate. I won't be married to you, Mel, not a second longer than necessary for the divorce. I won't make it easy for you. I'm going to protect as much of my money as I can. Your family and friends will know what you've done. I won't hide the truth from those who spat in my face with their actions. Now you're on your own. I think that's what you might have wanted all along. All right, I'm done. Speak calmly if you want. Mel tried not to cry, but she wasn't very successful. She was a strong and proud woman, but this man, whom she claimed to love, whom she had deeply betrayed, had just ruined her by speaking the truth. He had noticed the depth of her terrible actions and their consequences. She wanted to hate him, to blame him for everything. She desperately tried to avoid the obvious wrongdoing, but there was no escaping the truth of who she was. Did you tell my parents? No, I'll leave that up to you. I talked to my boss and a couple of friends I work with. Besides my lawyer and our company's attorney Michael, I haven't spoken to anyone else. But let me make it clear. If you try to hide the truth or whitewash your actions, I'll pass it all on to them, including what's recorded on the flash drive. I can't tell everything to my parents. It will kill them if they hear all this. You can't hate me this much, Henry. Mel, you didn't care at all about my feelings or the fact that your choice broke my heart. You've been behaving disgustingly towards me for at least 6 months, assuming you didn't have other lovers before that. Don't pretend to be a victim. I'll give you a week to tell them, and then I'll call. It's better for them to know exactly what happened, or they'll get a copy of everything. Henry, I swear, there were no others. David was the first and only one. Of course, Mel, and you were with Sue at the concert last Friday. You didn't sleep with that jerk in our marital bed all weekend while you were telling me how much you love me. I guess every time you open your mouth, you lie. I doubt you even know how to tell the truth in such a situation. Henry, I didn't want this to happen. I didn't seek it out. I was caught up in the moment when we won the Dayton case. As soon as we started, I wanted to stop, but I just didn't. I don't know why. Really, Mel? You don't know why? Henry rifled through the folder until he found the relevant page. Sorry, I should have understood from your conversations how much you wanted to be faithful to me. Like this quote from 2 days ago when you were both lying in our marital bed after sex. David, I just can't get enough of you. We have to be very careful. If Diana or Henry ever find out, we'll have to break up, and I don't want to stop making love to you. Yes, Mel, it seems you have such a contradictory attitude toward your behavior. Not sleeping, but lying in the arms of another man in our bed, calling your actions acts of love, and admitting that you never want to stop. You're completely messed up, Mel. Mel began to grasp Henry's words. She leaned back in her chair, saying nothing for a minute or two. Finally, she spoke. I have no excuse, Henry. I'm a grown woman, and I made my choice. I thought I could hide it from you. I thought I could play this game, and if you didn't find out, it would be harmless. I knew David was a jerk. I knew we would never love each other, even though we said those words. I never felt for him what I feel for you. But I heartlessly betrayed you and your love for me. Mel fell silent for a moment to blow her nose and dry her eyes. She looked across the table at Henry and immediately noticed 2 things. His wedding ring was lying on the table, and from the look in his eyes, she realized he was lost to her forever. He regarded her with the same contempt she had for him. Her little safe world of a loving husband crumbled. "Henry, I don't know what to do or where to go. I can't leave home until the divorce. It would mean admitting it's all over and committing financial suicide. I suppose you won't leave either. Can we agree to stay here for a while? I need time to think and decide on my next steps. I can't promise I won't push for divorce. Right now, all I want is to be with you always. I can't imagine life without you. I'll live in one of the spare rooms and avoid interactions beyond what's necessary. Just like roommates, I'll respect your personal space. Mel, I can't tell you what to do, what to think, or where to go. Erica, my lawyer, instructed me not to leave the house until the divorce is official, and she said you would feel the same. Today you'll stay in the master bedroom. I refuse to sleep on the mattress where you had sex with that jerk. Tomorrow I'll donate it to the Salvation Army, and they'll bring us a new one. This will be my bed, on which you'll never sleep. Thank you for understanding, Henry. I would fight to stay if I had to. It's my only legal choice, but I appreciate that you compromised. I'll start moving my things tomorrow while you're at work." Mel stood up and approached Henry to hug him. He quickly moved away from her. "Get lost, Mel. Never try to touch me again. That's all I can do. To be in the same room with you and keep calm. You broke my heart, and you destroyed us. I can't comfort you now or ever for what you've done. You made your choice alone, and you live with it alone. I'll never forget how you flirted with me, Mel, but I'll work hard to erase you from my life as much as possible, and that journey has already begun." Mel slumped back into the chair, dropped her head on the table, and sobbed. Mel fought the divorce with all her might. Deep down, she hoped Henry would soften and stay. She, too, had to fight if she wanted to preserve even a drop of self-respect. Many friends cut ties with her when they heard what she had done to Henry. Mel approached the court to request counseling, showing that she had already undergone therapy and proving that she had no connection to David Miller. However, representing herself was never a good idea, but Mel worried about attorney fees, so she decided to give it a try. She temporarily halted the process but never let it slide. Even Mel's parents begged her to let go of Henry. They were horrified by her actions and sided with Henry, although they tried to maintain not-so-good relations with their daughter. It took 7 months to finalize the divorce. The house and savings were divided equally, but Henry didn't have to pay alimony. Miracles do happen. Melanie left Connor, Sims, and Miller, and joined a small firm in San Antonio. On the day of her divorce, she walked out of the house and turned back to say goodbye to Henry. He slammed the door in her face before she could speak. Now she rarely dates, but usually on Fridays, she brings home a random guy just for sex. Perhaps human interaction soothes her soul. Perhaps it reminds her that she was a cunt who abandoned a good man in a marriage. It turned out that Connor and Sims still had a soul, even if they were lawyers. They kicked out Miller, and a few months later, he moved to Houston, where he took a position at a small law firm run by his cousin. Diana cleaned him out in the divorce, and his children don't speak to him. The lawsuit filed by Henry and Diana was settled out of court for $250,000 each for the plaintiffs. Erica was very pleased with the results. David Miller started spending evenings in a rundown bar located in the wrong part of town. One evening, as he was leaving, a man approached him in the parking lot. He looked into the eyes of Henry Canna. There were no surveillance cameras in this area. Henry said, "Hello, asshole," and then delivered a devastating punch to his face. His nose and jaw were broken. Henry leaned over him, and he spat blood and a couple of teeth from his mouth. "I wanted you to know who did this to you, David. I wanted you to look me in the eye and understand that this was going to happen. Now, if you report this, there are 12 retired Marines sitting in the bar in downtown Austin right now, and most of them are wearing combat vests with medals. They will swear that I was with them all evening. If by some chance I am arrested and charged with attacking you, 1 or 2 of them will come back and finish what I started. You got it, you piece of shit?" Charges were never filed. About a year after the divorce, Henry was leaving a cafe in downtown Austin when he looked up and saw a beautiful woman about his age entering. He held the door for her as she walked in. "Thank you, kind sir," she said. "Nice to see that some cowboys still have good manners." "You're welcome, ma'am," Henry replied, heading towards his car. He was about to leave when he thought to himself, "What the hell?" and turned around, heading back into the cafe. She was sitting facing the door and immediately looked up when he returned. He walked straight to her table, extended his hand, and said, "Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Henry." She shook his hand in greeting. "Nice to meet you, Henry. I'm Lori. Why don't you pull up a chair?" Quote.
Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments. And we'll see you on the Cheating Secrets channel.